transmit the transaction online. So basically, the card can say to the terminal, if you fail to verify me for some reason, do not reject me. Let's still work together, which is, kind of a wrong concept. So in every tested terminal and cards pair that we were able to test, we could always manipulate the action code so that the tampering with the CVM list does not result in offline rejection. And what happens is that when you tamper with the CVM list, even if the signature is invalid, the CVM list is honored by the terminal. So you can always downgrade from enciphered PIN verification to plain text PIN verification, no matter what kind of card you're using and no matter what the original CVM list was, bypassing completely these two settings which EMV provides you specifically for protecting the cardholder verification method. And that's one example of a PIN being actually skimmed on SDA and DDA cards. So it is broken. And Adam, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so here's an example of a specific transaction that we sniffed. So the slide before, you had a protocol analyzer showing you some data going on. We used that to sniff this conversation. So you see in this card, it's inserted in the terminal, it selects the Visa application, it reads a bunch of data, makes its decision, it's going to go online, and the final command, generate AC, is generate application cryptogram, which is an encrypted packet that's sent to the online system to verify the PIN or whatever it is that it's doing. If we then take the same transaction in the same machine, but now using our man-in-the-middle attack, we've downgraded the action code to say don't fail if you've failed the offline authentication. And we've also downgraded the CVM to say, well, do a plain text PIN instead of an encrypted one. And so now at the bottom you see a couple of extra commands have appeared. It asks how many tries it's got left on the PIN, and then it does a PIN verification in plain text, and we can see the PIN in this case was 1234. It then carries on and does the online transaction. Now, we don't care whether or not that transaction fails because we've achieved our objective. We have now, at the same time as reading all that data, we've logged it all into the skimmer. I can come along with my card, my special card, plug it into the machine, and it will dump that log onto here. I now have all your card data and your PIN because you did a plain text PIN.
So very quickly because we're running out of time. So what can do the backend to detect this kind of behavior? So the backend, of course, will detect that the offline authentication failed. But we don't think that's a good reason for actually blocking the transaction or invalidating the card, because that can happen for several reasons. And also, the backend will see that the last CVM that was used was the plain text PIN verification. However, there are ways to get around that. This is another piece of data which is sent by the card to the backend, which also says if the offline verification was performed or not. And this is actually the bit that can be used to prevent the Cambridge attack, because what happens is you in the Cambridge attack, what they do, they tell to the terminal that the PIN verification has been performed while the card doesn't see any PIN verification. And so by correlating this data here with this data here, you can actually tell that the terminal has seen a PIN verification and the card has not. So you can block that attack. But no one does it because every backend is not implemented very well. Anyway, so the way that you can prevent this kind of detection, which again we don't think it can be used to actually prevent this kind of attack, and we get the PIN anyway because all of this backend detection happens after the transaction and we got the PIN already. So one thing that we can do, we can have a downgrade CVM list which says offline PIN and then online PIN, and when we verify the offline PIN, we then send to the card the incorrect PIN, so that then we fall back to the second CVM method. And that works, and that's what's going to be stored as the last CVM being performed that the backend can see. And the only downside is that the customer will be prompted twice for the PIN, which, well, we don't think it's a huge deal. There are also other ways that I don't have time, so maybe in the QA we can explain. There are other ideas which we haven't tested that can exploit the fact that all the phases are separate to have a completely clean terminal verification results and all the other data that the backend sees. So the industry loves to point fingers at impracticality. They say, well, but if you want to skim the cards and do something like this, then you need to build something like this, basically. And that is too big to fit in the POS. So this is what we've done.
So this is called Fly, and you'll find out why it's called Fly in a minute, because we have another device called Spider. But this was basically built in a day. We worked together on a project to test some POS terminals, and this is one of the devices we came up with. So you see a flexi circuit here, and actually if I can swap across, if you can hit input 1. Sure. Let's see if you can see this. Okay. So this is Fly. It's really thin, and this was all the board was handmade and hand soldered, so that's why it's got these big vias on it and this particularly large chip on it. It can be made a lot smaller, and basically this guy, the green cable here is just for programming the microcontroller, and this little sticky out bit actually has an LED on the end, just so we could know it was working. But basically, when it's in operation, these get cut off, and there's a little hook at the back that hooks into the back of the POS terminal. So basically, you have an insertion card. You make like you're making a transaction.
Yeah, we have.
And you insert it into the POS terminal, and it sits as a shim in between the actual terminal itself and the card. Now we'll have a look at.
Yeah, we have the.
Yep. So here we see it installed, and basically it sits there quite happily. The POS terminal manufacturer, if you can see the kind of little divots in that card acceptor, helpfully left me lots of space. It was just the right size for my microcontroller. Thank you very much. And in this version, we simply insert it, it hooks in, and just lives in the POS terminal. And once a week, once a month, someone rocks up with a card like this, except we'll just put a sticky label on it to make it look like a card like this, insert it in, and it will download all the data to this JCOP card, and we can walk away with it. Now, we did this research back at the end of last year, and subsequently we've discovered that, in fact, these devices are out in the wild, and in fact have been found out in the wild with a handy little 2.4 gig radio chip, so you don't even have to show up with your card to download the data.
And they also had a serial number printed on it, which I think is very scary. Right. Yeah. So, just so that you can do the happy handing, which I know it's important. Let's brush up.
I'm just going to quickly, I'll quickly show you a couple of other quick bits. If this has wakey-wakey. No, hold on.
One?
It is one.
Yeah. Here we go.
So, we also developed a device to do the Cambridge attack. This is called Spider. So here we have our stolen card that theoretically would not be usable at all. And again, you just pop Spider on there and just put a sticker over the top, and Spider will implement the Cambridge attack.
Yeah, you'll notice I covered up my card number while...
And also, we knocked up another little device because some of these chip and pin terminals aren't very compliant, so they have a nice decorative cover around the keypad.
We have pictures for that.
Yeah, well, we discovered we could pop it off, and this guy, when it's populated, is about 2 millimeters thick, and it will sit there and skim the key presses using IR brake beams.
So So to sum up, we think an EMV skimmer poses a serious threat due to the ease of installation and very difficult detection. There's simply too much data going on in the clear from the card to the terminal, which can be used on fraudulent usage on websites. If you brute force the CVV, you can still clone to MagStripe, and we can always intercept the PIN that then can be used with a stolen card on an ATM to get cash, despite the card configuration and type. And all of this raises serious liability considerations when the PIN is being used. We got a very nice vendor response. My favorite quote is MasterCard spokesman said in an interview that the EMV system is simply too complex for an easy fix. When you have a technology that is so complex that you cannot fix it when you have security vulnerabilities, you should trash it and do something better. However, in the Netherlands, the hole has been fixed. They just shut down every point of sales for 4 hours, and they broke compatibility with the standard by disabling the possibility of doing plain text PIN verification with domestic cars, because they knew that all domestic cars are DDA. They can still do the plain text PIN verification with the foreign cards. The actual country code on the card is not signed, so we're not sure if this actually is an effective method or not.
Yeah, and we have to apologise to any Dutch people here, because we did take effectively the POS network in Holland offline for 2 days while they patched their firmware. Sorry, guys.
So, recommendation, they should do crypto from start to end with proper implementation. There's no other way around it. This is simply too complex, and it is a wrong concept to put your PIN in a device which you cannot trust, when it is the card itself that verifies the PIN. The terminals cannot be trusted, as we've seen. This is a terminal which is actually being tampered with, and no tamper-proof sensors went off because they don't concern about this kind of outer casing and about the actual card slot. So, of course, you can patch EMV by disabling, as the Netherlands did, plain text PIN verification on every POS and ATM in the world. It can be done. Some say, no, it's too complex. I think it's feasible, but they should probably spend some time to build a better protocol. So when you get EMV in the US, let's hope that this will be fixed. And we will all be happy to help you in doing that. So, happy ending. Give these guys the happy ending.
Okay, so I'll do this really quickly because we don't have a huge amount of time. But Zach and I were here on a business trip back in February, and while we were here, there was a lot of buzz about this new system that was available. Basically, it's a credit card processing system, which allows hookers and small businesses to accept credit card payments, and you get this little dongle, and you stick it in your iPhone or your iPad, and you can then swipe cards. So we were looking at this thing, and we thought, oh, that's pretty cool, that's pretty neat. How does it work? And a friend of ours gave us one to play with, and so we had a look at it. And we were sitting in the lounge on the way home. We had about a half-hour layover in the lounge. And so we looked at this thing, and we decided, obviously, it was just using audio.
Oh, I lost the video.
You've lost your video.
MIDI cable?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, it's cable problem.
So yeah, it's obviously just using audio. It's converting the MagStripe to audio, and then the audio is being processed by the application on the iPhone. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Heard this before? So yeah, I gave a talk about 5 years ago called MagStripe Madness, which was all about dicking with credit cards, using sound cards and so on. Do you want to stick me on?
Technical problem with the video.
So we ran across the road, across the hallway from the lounge, and we went into Brookstone, and we bought one of these little adapter cables to convert a standard PC into a Mac